Good evening. Good morning, actually. I want to begin by thanking the professional and dedicated men and women of law enforcement who have been working to help restore order to the streets of Ferguson for 10 days now. Throughout the night, our brave officers from many different departments acted as one united team. They diffused potential confrontations and responded quickly to prevent agitators and criminals from allowing disorder to overtake peaceful protests. 24 hours ago, I told you how organized and increasingly violent instigators were inserting themselves into law-abiding protesters. And I asked that the forces of peace come out and protest before the sun went down, so they would not serve as shields for the lawbreakers in the night. Tonight we saw a different dynamic. Protest crowds were a bit smaller, and they were out earlier. We had to respond to fewer incidents than the night before. There were no Molotov cocktails tonight. There were no shootings, but a vehicle did approach the command center and threats were made to kill a police officer. We identified the vehicle, located it, and made arrests, and seized 2 loaded handguns. In another incident, a third loaded handgun also was seized. However, at about midnight, bottles were thrown at police officers near public storage business located on West Florissant that forced police to deploy their helmet shields for protection and then break into the crowd and search for the agitators, who hid behind the media for safety. All night and early this morning, no smoke bombs, no tear gas was used by police. We did deploy very limited pepper spray. And tonight, once again, no police officer fired a single bullet. What made the difference, you may ask? Tonight, the elders in this community, volunteers, activists, and the clergy came out in large numbers. They walked, they talked with people. They urged order, calm, and peace. That had a common influence on the younger people. As of 1 a.m., there were 47 arrests tonight, and early this morning compared to 31 at the same time yesterday. I will add that one of the arrestees was an out-of-state violator who we've arrested for the 3rd time. I also think that over the past 10 days, the men and women of law enforcement and the people of Ferguson have gotten to know better and understand to understand one another. It makes me proud every night as I see more and more police officers and residents interacting and smiling. Earlier tonight, Governor Nixon said, "We've seen tremendous acts of grace, courage, and kindness as the people of Ferguson try to maintain peace." Let me give you some examples of what I witnessed. At 8:30 tonight on West Florissant Avenue in Highmont Drive, I met Paris Moore, who was cooking out with her family. She invited me and the troopers that I was walking with to join her for hot dogs and ice cold water. And one good hot dog it was tonight. Despite the turmoil, she cooked out there for the past 6 nights in a row, inviting people to join her free of charge. That is the true spirit of Ferguson. And I saw that same spirit of Ferguson 10 hours earlier. And this morning, hundreds of volunteers were out sweeping the streets and picking up the glass and other debris, rebuilding this city. 300 of those volunteers were from the Jennings School District. They didn't have school today because of the conflict. But those teachers and school staffers were still teaching all of us a lesson about making communities better and stronger. This morning, we also invited some small businesses that have been vandalized and looted. The smashed out windows were boarded up, but they still were open for business and determined to stay in business and to keep Ferguson going. That is the true spirit of Ferguson. And that's why the men and women of law enforcement here tonight are here to protect the people and their property, and to make sure that this community has a future worthy of the true spirit of Ferguson. I will answer a few questions.
Captain Johnson, will you go into a little bit more detail about the threats made against officers and the arrests you made for that?
We identified a vehicle that had made threats to shoot a police officer. We had officers stop that vehicle, We located 2 of the handguns you see here tonight.
What time was that?
That was around, it appears to be about 8:30.
And that happened right outside command post?
It was in the area here. I was down on the West Florida.
Captain, would you describe exactly what happened right around midnight that triggered the disturbance that caused you to have to clear the street?
As I said, the agitators, the criminals, embedded themselves and hid behind media. They began throwing bottles, they threw urine on officers, and that's what caused officers to take action and begin to make arrests.
You know how many bottles were thrown?
I don't have the exact number.
The glass bottles? Were the glass bottles?
There were glass bottles, yes, and also plastic bottles with water and ice.
Do you feel like you made a turning point tonight, or do you feel like this is going to kind of be a dynamic that plays itself out on different nights, or what do you feel?
I believe there was a turning point there. And I think that turning point was made by the clergy, the activists, the volunteers, and the men and women of law enforcement who partnered together to make a difference. But also those citizens who took heed to what we talked about last night, not allowing criminals to mass themselves in a peaceful protest. They protested early and they went home early, and allowed us a better visual look of those criminals and agitators that are roaming the streets of Florida for their own legitimacy.
Well, tonight seemed like that there was an issue of ending the demonstrations. Is that a problem that you guys are having to get them to say, okay, the protest is over?
The clergy wanted to have a prayer to end tonight. Those criminals and those agitators did not even have the respect of prayer. Their action started doing prayer.
It looks like they actually had a human chain form at some point, too.
How long can you hold these people in jail, these agitators that you're referring to? How long are you going to be able to hold them? 8 hours, maybe?
We transported them to jail, and that'll be up to the jail how long they stay.
Captain, there was throughout the evening was very peaceful, as you said, very subdued. And as people grew tired of marching in circles for hours, they started to congregate in the parking lots in front of the businesses. And prior to that, the officers did not have on their helmets. Were not holding their batons out. When the decision was made to clear the parking lots of people in front of the businesses, a line of police officers at that point decided to don their helmets, and you could feel the tension in the air elevate because that caused people to take almost a defensive pose against them. Why was that decision made to put on helmets when they felt the need to clear the parking lots?
Sir, if you see these guns on the table, if you had a helmet, a stick in your hand, would you walk in the crowd with your helmet up? Would you walk in the crowd without having the ability to defend yourself? When people are throwing urine?
This was prior to that. The night was still peaceful, and there were large crowds starting to congregate in the parking lots, and the move was just to get them back on the sidewalks.
And our officers have to be, their safety. Their safety is number one. Their safety is number one. If you saw me tonight, and some of you saw me tonight, when I got home last night at 3:30 in the morning, my wife was up. The lights were on. And when I walked through the door, I knew that I was in trouble. She didn't say hi. She said, "Why didn't you have your vest on?" And when I left today, I got here, the first text that I had on my phone is, "Your promise." And the promise means that I am going to come home. These men and women are going to come home.
What, if anything, are you going to do differently tomorrow night? I know that there was the rules against congregation, there were the rules against getting in the street. Will there be more guidelines, or what, if anything, will be done differently tomorrow?
I'm always reassessing. We're reassessing our operational plan to do whatever we can to make the night better, to make the night safer, and we're making steps. They're not big giant steps, they're small steps. But those small steps are going to turn into giant steps, and those giant steps are going to be great strides for this community.
Captain, did I understand right that you said one of the individuals you arrested was from out of town and he's been arrested for the second time?
The third time.
The third time. And where is he from, do you know?
Austin, Texas.
Captain, was that a traffic stop on the car that was making
traffic stop. Yes.
The information developed from there about the threats.
We knew about the threat before we stopped the vehicle. We identified the vehicle and located it.
And those individuals were from where?
I do not know at this time.
You said 47 arrests total tonight.
Yes.
And two of these weapons were recovered from that automobile.
Two of those weapons, yes, were.
Can you give us details on the rest of those arrests, those other arrests?
There was a variety of it, so I really couldn't give you. There was a variety of reasons why they were arrested.
One of the
Mainly for failure to disperse.
We got time for one more
One of
question.
the community activists said that they thought that a reason that it was a little more peaceful tonight is because you all were aligned differently along the street and not a wall on either end of Florissant. And I noticed a difference too, where the trucks were parked and where you all were situated. Was that a tactical decision made by you all to try something different that seemed less confrontational?
We're always assessing our operational plan here, our operational approach, coming up with the best way to preserve the rights of everyone that's here for peaceful protest, so they can have the right to protest and freedom of speech. So we continue to do that. And from your statement, I think it worked tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. You just listened to Captain Ron Johnson.